Good morning, friends. This, I mean, video is related and meant for class 10 language and literature. Candidates, the examinees of class 10. The title and the name of the lesson is The Making of a Scientist by Robert W. Peterson. The title is the Making of a Scientist by Robert W. Peterson. Before going into the details of the story about a young scientist who became a famous scientist later on, let us talk about what are the qualities that really help in making a good scientist. There are many qualities which really help in making someone a good scientist. First of all, a young student or the youth who are aspiring to become a scientist must have good scientific temperament. The second important quality that a scientist should have is to have curiosity, competitive, zeal, and should always be ready to receive suggestions from his teacher and his friends and all the motivators, and he should find out and do research from various sources, including books and research journals available. He should be curious enough to know why and how, and finally he should have a will to win. So these are the qualities required for becoming a good scientist. The story, Making of a Scientist, is about a scientist named his name was a bright doctor's name was a bright. And actually the story is about a great turning point that was in the life of you know the making of a scientist. The author, actually W. Peterson, has talked about the scientist a bright. And the making of a scientist is the story of Richard A. Bright. Richard is a Bright, the scientist who really did a research on monarch, butterflies. Actually, he collected 25 species of butterflies while he was in, kindergarten, and that the book that was given by his mother, the title of the book was the Travels of Monarch 10. That gave him a real opportunity. The only parent of Richard E. Bright was his mother, who really supported him. She brought a book. The title of the book was The Travels of Monarch 10, and this book gave him a thorough knowledge about the monarch butterflies. In the second year of his high school, A. Bright began to search an unknown hormone in the world, and that could be spotted in the gold spots of the butterflies. In the later years, he discovered how cell could read the blueprint of DNA. In the latter years of his experiments, he could discover how a cell could read the blueprint of in DNA. So Richard E. Bright grew to be a great scientist because of his devotion, because of his curiosity, and because of his ability to learn anything and everything about a particular kind of butterflies called monarch butterflies. Let us talk about the details of the stories, that is regarding how Richard E. Bright became a great scientist and what were the things that really brought a turning point in his life. Let's talk about it. Richard E. Bright, as a young child, was very curious to know about butterflies. In his early years of schooling, he had collected 25 species of, butterflies. At the age of 22, Richard H. E. Bright was excited in the world of science with new theory on cells. A Richard's scientific temperament could be easily understood when he started collecting 25 species of butterflies while he was in the kindergarten. A Bright collected butterflies when he was just in nursery. His mother encouraged his interest in learning. She took him on trips and brought microscopes, cameras, equipments, and telescopes for his exposure to scientific tools. His mother was the only parent. She supported his learning interest all the way. She could inculcate the habit of reading books, doing experiments. So Ebright was motivated by his mother to do all kinds of, studies about the butterflies. The mother gifted him a children's book. The name of the book was The Travels of Monarch Ten. The book turned out to be a turning point in his life. He sent tagged butterflies to Dr. Opcard, the writer of the book. A bride raised a flock of butterflies in the basement and would tag the butterflies' wings to send them to the experiment. In the seventh grade, he entered the country's science fair and didn't win any prize. He was very much, dejected, but he never gave up. And later on, the next year, his science fair project was to test the theory, and finally, he won the prize, the third prize overall in the country, in the country's science fair. In his second year in his high school, Richard E. Bright discovered an unknown insect hormone, and he and his friends showed that tiny gold spots on butterflies produce a hormone that was necessary for the butterfly's full development. This project won a bright first place in the country fair and entry into the International Science and Engineering Fair. So that is how Richard E. Bright grew to be a great scientist. So the lesson actually gives us the encouragement that the parents can play a great role in making of a great scientist to the children. The parents are the great motivators. Had his mother not brought the book, the title of the book was the Travels of Monarch 10, and he would never have discovered the different types of hormones, and particularly the gold spots on the monarch butterflies, who could serve as a great source to know and discover about the hormone. The book really turned out to be a turning point in the life of Richard E. Bright. Without this book, a Bright would not have ended the would not or would have ended in simply collecting the butterfly. His mother gifted this children book to her son. This book described how monarch butterfly migrated to Central America. This book opened the world of science to the young scientists, and therefore Richard E. Bright really grew to be a great scientist because of the inspiration given by his mother, because of his continuous effort in discovering about the hormones on the gold spots of the monarch butterflies. His continuous research and curiosity really helped him, do the experiments after experiments. Even when he lost in the very first science fair, he didn't give up. He went on doing research on the monarch butterflies. Finally, his project got acknowledged and he got the third prize in the science fair. His project also entered in the International Science Fair, and he was rewarded the first prize. He did his education from Harvard. He had curiosity to know why and how, and this really curiosity turned out to be a boon to his career, and he grew to be a great scientist in the later years of his career. So that you see that how Richard E. Bright turned out to be a great scientist. It was all the motivation of his mother, the help, the support given by his mother, and his curiosity and scientific temperament that really helped Richard E. Bright become a great scientist of the world. His research on monarch butterflies became a turning point. He proved to be a great, contributor of the, the search and research of cells and DNA. So in the later years, he could find out that a special or a specific cells in DNA can work as wonders. So his subject of the experiment was in biology, and he could find out that a special cell can really make the blueprint of a DNA, the life and controls of the hereditary. Thus, Richard E. Bright really brought out a wonderful, research, and talked about the identity of hormones, chemical structure. He discovered that the cell can read out the blueprint of its DNA. He discovered that the cell could read out the blueprint of a DNA, and this is the substance that is the nucleus of a cell, and that controls the heredity. So the DNA determines the form and function of the cell, and this was the research done by Richard E. Bright, the great scientist, and that is how we compile with this story.